Monsieur Mérier. Merci infiniment. Merci. Thank you. Yes, please. Donc maintenant, nous avons entendu deux panels extrêmement intéressants.
So we've had two extremely interesting panels from scientists. We've also had those who are in charge of territorial collectivities. So now I invite you to listen attentively from a message from civil society shared by Runa Khan, who's the founder and executive director of Friendship Association.
Between the pandemic crisis, climate disruption, and deepening inequality, humanity faces a global wake-up call, being forced to question our relationship with one another, with nature, with life itself. This is why One Health matters. It's a path towards a fairer, safer, and a more hopeful world. We must reinforce solidarity, regain trust in science, respect the knowledge of communities living these realities, invest far more in prevention and preparedness, understand planetary boundaries, share and scale the invaluable initiatives that has remained too often isolated, overlooked. Above all, we must break the silos, ensure fairer distribution of resources, and bring together public institutions and private actors. We must act now. As founder of Friendship, 23 years of serving 7.5 million people annually in some of the most underserved communities, I have learned that sustainable results cannot happen without solidarity and mutual respect. This led to a group of us creating One Sustainable Health Forum in 2020, a unique global platform bringing together diverse voices, linking planetary health, justice, and sustainable development. I am proud to be the honorary chair since its inception. With the support of One Sustainable Health, its partners share best practices, learn together, and create meaningful opportunities and solutions across countries and communities. On this 7th April, with the support of the government of France, alongside national and international organizations, governments, civil society, we appeal to all citizens to embrace the importance of a holistic One Health approach to bring better health, opportunity, dignity, and hope for all life and our planet.
So you just heard it from Ms. Khan. We must act now, and everyone can act. This holistic approach is actually something that everyone should be talking about. We will now move to the third and last panel of the day. It is the last panel, but it is a very important one. So I want to thank all of you that have stayed, and I welcome all of you that are coming back. Actually, this panel will talk about something very important, something that we have to talk about, being here in Lyon, la capitale de la gastronomie. Nous allons parler de ce que nous mangeons, de nos systèmes alimentaires.
The capital of gastronomy, we're going to talk about what we eat, our food systems, and how can we work towards a sustainable and healthy food system. So we're going to talk about the consequences of pollution on human health, on the ecological balances. Because every year, 12 million people die as a result of environmental factors. I mean, this is a figure that we should all have in mind. This is just unbearable.
So without further ado, I will now invite the moderator of this panel. It's Professor Carlos Neves, a strong advocate of One Health, as co-chair of the One Health high-level panel and chief scientist of the European Food Safety Agency. I have to tell you, yes, please, you can applaud him. Please, Dr. Neves. Before I hand it over to him, I have to tell you a secret that Mr. Neves told me yesterday. He told me that for 20 years now, the scientist community had been waiting for a moment when we can all act and talk together. So now is the time.
Thank you very
Professor.
much. Merci, Madame Ministre. Mesdames et messieurs,
Thank you, Madam Minister,
Excellences,
so,
ladies and gentlemen, and
Excellencies.
all of you One Health fans, advocates, believers, curious, sitting here in the room or wherever you are connecting around the world. Again, a word of thanks. Indeed, for many of us scientists, we've been 20 years waiting for this rendezvous between scientists and top politicians, and it's been a great journey so far. But on this third panel, indeed, we want to take the journey a little bit further. As the Minister has mentioned, we have this planet that we need to take care of. And despite the best efforts of our astronauts, it's still really the only one we have. And our health is inextricably connected to the health of this planet. That provides for us everything we need. But it's also a planet that is under threat. So we propose that in this last panel, we take a quick but an essential deep dive into these special momentums. We reaffirm the political will that this approach can make action a reality. And then we talk how we can make it work in food and nutrition, but also in pollution. And without further ado, I ask you to help me to welcome our panelists to the stage. And the first one, will be Son Excellence Rachid Talbi El Alami, Président de la Chambre des représentants et représentant de Sa Majesté le Roi Mohammed VI, Roi du Royaume de Maroc. Excellence. Then also His Excellency Ahmed bin Ali Al Sayegh, Minister of Health and Prevention of the United Arab Emirates, representing the Presidents of the UAE, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. Also, Mrs. Ingrid Anderson, Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme. Monsieur Antoine Bernard de Saint-Affrique, Directeur Général de Danone. And last but not least, Mr. Matt Reed, CEO of the Aga Khan Foundation. Welcome all. And without further delay, we go to work, and I invite Mr. President to take the podium. Thank you.
Madame la Ministre, Excellency, Mr. the President of the French Republic, first of all, I'd like to warmly thank His Excellency, the President of the French Republic, for organizing this summit and for his strong commitment to the major issues that bring us once again together today. It's a great honor for me to speak today in the name of His Majesty the King Mohammed VI and on behalf of the Kingdom of Morocco at this One Health Summit. Allow me also to convey the greetings of His Majesty as well as his steadfast commitment to the causes we are addressing today and their results and resolutions. A summit that reminds us of a simple truth. We have only one planet and we share one common destiny. So we need one action for One Health. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of One Health is not just a slogan. One Summit is not just a meeting. It's a warning, because today, human health, animals' health, food production process, the health of our planet, and the balance of all living systems are one and the same. And yet, we continue to act if they were separate. The climate is changing, ecosystems are weakening, inequalities are deepening, crises are multiplying, and in response, too often, our actions remain too slow. Our actions are dispersed and sometimes insufficient. Humanity has always faced challenges, but today, these threats are converging in ways that endanger our shared future. Climate disruption is no longer a distant risk, it's a reality. It increases vulnerability, threatens biodiversity, and destabilizes our societies. At the same time, uncontrolled urbanization, unbalanced food systems, and harmful practices are affecting both physical and mental health. So let us ask ourselves a simple question: how much longer can we afford to wait? So allow me to speak about Africa. First of all, Morocco supports Ghana's initiative and believes in His Excellency's President's capacities to fulfill this commitment. Africa is a continent that is exposed to the effects of climate change, many pandemics. The COVID-19 was a stark reminder. And international solidarity has demonstrated its limits. And this, we can no longer accept it. Morocco, under the leadership of His Majesty the King, Mohammed VI, has made a clear choice. The choice of action, action for health, action for climate, action for green fertilizers, action for Africa. Through concrete initiatives such as the 3A initiative for the adaptation of African agriculture. When Ebola pandemic struck some African countries, Morocco kept its air connection, and through a profound reform of our health system as part of broader vision of a social state. Ladies and gentlemen, in an interconnected world, isolation is an illusion. No country, I repeat, no country can face these challenges alone. No agency and no ministry alone can act against illness, pandemics, etc. We must share knowledge, build capacities, transfer technology, invest together, and why not go further? Let us consider an ambitious plan for health in Africa in the spirit of one health system, because ultimately everything depends on one thing: political will. Ladies and gentlemen, the pandemic taught us one essential lesson: our destinies are interconnected, and in the face of global challenges, individual solutions are nothing but an illusion. So today, we are faced with a choice: to endure or to act. Morocco has chosen to act and has already broken the borders. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And without further delay, I now pass the floor also to an intervention by the United Arab Emirates. Your Excellency.
Your Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, I am honored to address you today on behalf of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates. We extend our sincere appreciation to the government of the French Republic and to President Macron for convening this very important summit at a critical moment for global health. We also recognize the leadership of the quadripartite, the WHO, the UNEP, FAO, and WOAH, for advancing the One Health agenda with great ambition. The One Health approach reminds us of a simple truth. The health of people, animals, and our environment are inseparable, and that these risks are inherently interconnected, with pressures on one system quickly affecting the others. Today in the UAE, we are seeing this play out in real time as illegal, unjustifiable, and unprovoked attacks from Iran, encompassing over 2,700 drones and missiles, continue to exact a toll on human lives and livelihoods, critical civilian infrastructure, and the environment simultaneously. The UAE condemns in the strongest terms these attacks on our territory, the Gulf states, and the wider region. In just the first 2 weeks of this war, over 5 million tons of CO2 emissions were generated. This is equivalent to the combined yearly emissions of the world's 84 lowest emitting countries. Strikes on fuel storage sites alone have burned up to 5.9 million barrels of oil, adding nearly 1.9 million tons of CO2 equivalent emissions to a world already racing against a shrinking carbon budget. The hostile closure of the Strait of Hormuz also has dire and lasting consequences for human health, biodiversity, and food systems. The extra transit time of vessels rerouted around the Cape of Good Hope has increased emissions and delayed products like medicines from reaching those who need them. Around 35% of the world's fertilizers flow through the strait, and the threat to global agriculture is monumental. If the strait remains closed, 45 million people risk being pushed into food insecurity. This is a war against the health of every country, consumer, and family that depends on affordable energy and food, against ecosystems that are being damaged, and against critical resources that we all share. It highlights the extent to which our systems are interconnected and the importance of addressing risks with that shared reality in mind. While One Health has historically centered on zoonotic diseases, our experiences show that we must continue to expand the boundaries of One Health while addressing environmental risks such as air pollution, which are major drivers of chronic diseases, including cancer, cardiovascular, and respiratory issues, and pregnancy complications. From this experience, we drew 3 lessons that we believe are broadly relevant to our discussions here. First, the importance of integrated policy and governance, recognizing that health, environment, and food systems are deeply interconnected. Second, the need for science-based decision-making, supported by strong data systems that translate evidence into action. Third, a shift toward prevention, not only response, but by addressing risks before they become crisis, including through early warning systems and risk-informed planning, many of which are reflected in the outcomes and deliverables of One Health Summit. In this context, we also underline the critical importance of the water-health-climate nexus, particularly in regions facing water stress and look forward to advancing these priorities through the 2026 United Nations Water Conference, which the UAE will co-host with Senegal. At a time when cooperation between nations is under strain, the protection of human health through a One Health approach must be a point of convergence. On this World Health Day, the United Arab Emirates is pleased to endorse the One Health and Beyond Declaration and partner with the One Health Center of Excellence Global Network with a view to convene UAE academic institutions as a concrete step toward that goal. The UAE remains committed to continue advancing practical, implementation-focused solutions that integrate health, environment, and climate priorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Minister. I think both your speeches have highlighted the need for connecting the dots, connecting our silos. And we move, therefore, already immediately to one of these, as already mentioned by the Minister, and being the Chief Scientist of EFSA, one of my favorite topics, foods, probably the favorite topic to many already in the room. And I turn to you, Antoine, Director, CEO of Danone, to start this dialogue. I know health and nutrition is a long-standing value at the core of Danone, and I would like to ask you to put your One Health lens here at the summit today and tell us, how do you see nutrition and food systems helping us, to bend this curve of non-communicable diseases?
Well, thank you, Carlos. Before answering precisely your question, I'll indulge to two very quick remarks. The first one is thanking you and the organizer for having business around the table, because I believe business can help and have impact at scale, and we urgently need impact at scale. The second thing is, you mentioned our long-standing commitment. Danone is born as a company from the belief that you can provide health through foods to many people, do that anchored into science, and that health is inseparable from planet, to the point where the signature of Danone for many, many years has been one planet, one health. So to your question, three very practical things. The first thing is non-communicable disease don't start in hospital. When it's in hospital, it's too late. You can treat them, or we can help with medical nutrition, but they start upstream. Prevention start upstream much earlier through the habits, through proper nutrition, through proper diet, through a real scientific and structured approach to nutrition, to be able to, over time, provide the right nutrient with the right diet in the right form and with the right habits. I think the second point, and I was alluding to it, is you cannot separate food or diet from food systems. There is no healthy food without a healthy nature. That's why we at Danone have been advocating for a long time and are being involved into regenerative agriculture at scale. 40% of all the product we sell today are coming from farms that have started their transition to regenerative agriculture, because in the end, there is no healthy diet without a healthy planet and healthy food system. The third point probably is, as I was saying, business has a specific role to play. By setting targets, by measuring progress in a structured way, by leading or creating coalitions that cut across the entire ecosystem, from NGOs to government. But what business is good at is setting goals, measuring, improving, delivering.
Thank you very much. And you just want to challenge you just think it's starting to work. Just want to challenge you a little bit further, because I know you're also been very focused on we need action, measurable action on the ground. And I know your special interest and passion also for early childhood problems. And you've mentioned before already the issue of anemia and iron deficiency. And I know you're willing to go further there. So this is your pitch. This
is the pitch. Well, listen, let me frame the pitch. I mean, according to the WHO, there is an estimation that about 40% of all kids between 6 months and 5 years suffer from anemia. And lots of it, by the way, coming from deficiency in iron. It's a drama. It's a drama because it's a silent disease. It's a drama because it is the future of humanity. It's our kids. It's a drama because we can do something about it. And we'll try to do our part at scale, as we discussed. So between now and 2030, we are committed to support 14 million screenings for iron status and for anemia, with very, very clear intent, which is making it visible, identifying the children that are at risk, generating data, because when you have data, you can act, but also strengthening awareness amongst the families, amongst healthcare professionals, amongst public authorities, because anemia is a very, very silent disease that conditions the future of our kids. And to make it very, very real, we'll do it in 3 different ways. One is embed screening into existing health system workflow, not doing something parallel. Otherwise, it's a waste of money and it will not work. The second thing is do it in a way that is non-invasive. So not taking blood, but doing it in a way that is modern, doing a way that is non-invasive, using AI to be able to do it at a very, very large scale and at a very, very, very low cost, to then have the data and turn people to a healthcare provider. And the third point is when you have the data, when you know what's happening, obviously supporting prevention through nutrition informed by science. Because once again, it needs to be informed by science. So 14 million is a lot, but 14 million is very, very little in the big scheme of things. So my call to action is also, well, this requires partnership. This requires our businesses, NGOs, our public authorities to join forces and move against a silent disease, which is conditioning the future of our kids.
Thank you very much. I now turn to you, Matt, and to the Aga Khan Foundation. I mean, I'm also aware of your long-standing work in food systems and nutrition, and the same challenge. With this One Health lens, how do you see the work of the foundation moving forward?
Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone for coming today. There's a lot of complementarity between the two of us, and hopefully we won't repeat each other too much. But I guess let me start by saying that the Aga Khan Development Network has an intergenerational commitment to many of the One Health principles. So if you think about the vision of His Late Highness the Aga Khan IV, for over 60 years, he led our combined 10 agencies on economic, social, cultural development. Now his son, His Highness the Aga Khan V, has taken the mantle. And if you think about the way that our system is structured, for example, we work in about 1,000 hospitals and clinics. We have what we think of as an integrated health program from the community level to primary, secondary, tertiary, including health workforce training. A very important through line is maternal and child health, especially focusing on those early years, and doing that in partnership, public-private partnership with governments. However, the edifice on which, as you just said, the edifice on which good health is built is on nutrition and healthy food systems. And so we have large programs looking at how to make food systems more nutritious, how to help smallholder farmers, in particular in the rural areas where we work, use regenerative methods. We work with about 1 million farmers every year who help provide better food and food security for about 8 million people every year. But because of that commitment to nutrition and more nutritious food systems, His Highness last year at the Nutrition for Growth Summit made a commitment of $45 million to that integrated nutrition work. And this year, in solidarity with the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister of the UAE and ruler of Dubai's call for an Edge of Life campaign during Ramadan against malnutrition globally, His Highness has doubled that commitment to $100 million over the next 5 years, again for this integrated nutrition work, building as well on ongoing investments in health, agriculture, and regenerative agriculture.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to both of you. I'm also concise at time. I would like to ask you to return to your seats as we shift gears a little bit and move to another topic in this session. And for that, I would like to call to the stage our last two panelists. No, you can stay, please. We're just welcoming two more guests. And the first one will be Miss Natalia de Miranda Grilli. She's a PhD candidate at the University of Tasmania, but a member also of the steering committee of the Scientists' Coalition for an Effective Plastic Treaty. And then, Monsieur Simon Bernard, président et cofondateur du Plastic Odyssey. Thank you very much for joining us. So now we go from food to pollution, topics that are also very often interlinked. But first with you, Natalia, and of course we are very interested to know how is the work of the coalition moving forward, and how do you see the needed actions to take us forward on this topic of plastics?
Thanks, Carlos. Good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to represent the Science Coalition for an Effective Plastics Treaty here today. The Science Coalition is a network of nearly 500 independent scientists from more than 70 countries working on plastics across a different range of disciplines and geographic perspectives. Today we launched a Science Coalition declaration on One Health impacts of plastics, which I'll be summarizing here today. But I invite you all to access the full declaration using the QR code that is on screen right now. Ladies and gentlemen, decades of scientific research demonstrate that plastic poses a multiple, interlinked, and cascading threats to human, animal, and ecosystem health at the heart of One Health concept. And plastic pollution goes beyond just plastic waste. It happens across the entire life cycle of plastics, from production to disposal, including the use phase of plastic products. It comprises both large items as well as small particles called micro and nanoplastics, as well as plastic chemicals. Plastics contribute to air, water, and land pollution, threatening the safety of our food systems and entering our bodies. The global health and economic impacts of plastic pollution are very substantial, but is still underestimated. Global health impacts on humans include increased risk of non-communicable diseases such as cancer, neuropsychiatric disorders, cardiovascular, respiratory, digestive diseases, as well as metabolism disruption. And very similar effects can be observed in animals. And very important, plastic pollution is everywhere, but it doesn't affect everyone the same. It exacerbates social and geographic inequalities and disproportionately affects already vulnerable populations, such as women, children and youth, frontline and fence-line communities, indigenous peoples, local communities, and population and low-income countries and communities. Economic costs resulting from human health impacts include increased healthcare costs, productivity losses, reduced life expectancies, diminished quality of life. An estimated of the global health costs related with a number plastic chemicals was found to be around $1.5 trillion in 2015. And as this estimate was based only on a small subset of plastic chemicals and health outcomes, the true global health burden of plastics must be much higher. We are now facing an historic opportunity to build a global institutional framework to guide us towards a safer and more sustainable economy for plastics, and science-based evidence can help us to get there. To protect human, animal, and environmental health, there is an urgent need to adopt an effective global plastics treaty to end plastic pollution across the entire life cycle of plastics, as mandated by UN Resolution 514. As was mentioning many times at the scientific summit yesterday and also today, working on prevention and at the source of the problem is highly recommended. And in this sense, reducing plastic production and consumption is demonstrated to be the most effective mean and economically viable lever to reverse the current unsustainable patterns of production and consumption of plastics. And this is particularly relevant given that the world is already struggling to manage all the plastic waste from the current levels, and that plastic production is expected to triple by 2060. Additionally, reducing plastic production would strengthen circular economy, create favorable markets for more sustainable initiatives and products, and generate local, social, and economic opportunities for all. Investing in solutions such as expanding repair and non-plastic reuse systems and diversifying material strategy in all economic sectors reduces single-use plastics and harmful emissions and impacts. Reducing plastic chemicals and eliminate chemicals of concern is crucial to fostering a safer and more effective circular economy for plastics. And to be efficient, all these measures should be guided by evidence-based criteria defined by independent science that should aim at just and equitable transition. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the One Health approach provides an effective concept to understanding of the multiple impacts plastic pollution poses to human, animal, and environmental health, and to drive us towards a safer, healthier, and more equitable future. Ladies and gentlemen, let science be our compass to go on to this journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalia, for your statements and for the commitment of so many scientists across the planets. We stay on the same topic, but perhaps if I can say we leave the lab and move into the fields. And with you, Simon, I think many of us have seen the videos. Perhaps many people here want to get on board. So I'll let you take us on this journey now.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Je m'appelle Simon Bernard, je suis explorateur et entrepreneur, et je reviens d'une expédition avec toute une équipe autour du monde pendant 3 ans et demi à la recherche des meilleures solutions concrètes pour lutter contre cette pollution plastique. On a embarqué sur ce navire laboratoire qui a été transformé à l'avant pour travailler sur
a lab on board that was meant to find concrete solutions to reduce the use of plastic and to try and find solutions all over the world. So this is where we traveled. We stopped in 45 places in Africa, South America, Asia. And the good news is that there are tons of solutions available already, tons of solutions that are already used elsewhere in the world to reduce the use of plastic and fight pollution from plastics. We referenced over 200 solutions, and we worked with entrepreneurs to replicate these solutions on a wider scale in order to halt the pollution or reduce it. Now, what I wanted to say today, more importantly, is another phenomenon that we discovered in the doing. This is to avoid the plastic ends in the street. That was the whole point of our expedition. How can we prevent plastic from being thrown into the oceans? Well, we realized that there's a lot of plastic that you can find on coastlines, and coastlines that are highly protected, and some that are part of the World Heritage. This is one example that struck me. In 2024, we stopped in Anderson Island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean after navigation to Polynesia
et on s'est rendu compte que ce joyau de la biodiversité qui compte parmi les 50 sites les plus protégés de la planète accueille des espèces endémiques incroyables. Au total, ces sites
représente 15% de la biodiversité mondiale. On se rend compte que ce site était aussi malheureusement connu pour sa pollution plastique. Pour vous donner un chiffre, sur les côtes d'Henderson, on retrouve entre 200 et 400 fois plus de plastique en termes de densité qu'au milieu du continent de déchets, au milieu du Pacifique. Donc il y a énormément de plastique qui s'accumule, qui se dégrade et derrière qui impacte la biodiversité. Un exemple très concret, par exemple, les tortues. Quand on ajoute des microparticules dans le sable, on va changer la température de tortue et donc on va changer le sexe des tortues puisque le sexe des tortues dépend de la température. Donc il y a des impacts très concrets et c'est pour ça qu'il y a une vraie urgence à aller retirer ces déchets avant qu'il soit trop tard, avant qu'ils se dégradent en particules. Alors la difficulté, c'est que ces endroits-là sont très protégés, il n'y a pas d'humains qui vivent, ils sont difficiles d'accès, notamment Henderson était connu pour être impossible à nettoyer puisqu'il est entouré par it cannot be cleaned up because it's surrounded by a coral barrier, which you can see here. And what we can see, what we did is to invent techniques that are more or less hair-raising, but allowed us to extract 10 tons of plastic waste from this island. And we used parachutes, rising parachutes, to fly the waste over the coral reef, and we realized that with 10 people working for a week, we managed to clean up one of the most important sites of biodiversity. So that was an achievement we were happy about.
On est reparti en se disant pourquoi pas aller faire les autres, puisqu'il n'y en a que 50 dans le monde, que ça représente que 1% de la surface terrestre. Donc c'est quand même assez accessible. Et c'est 15% de la biodiversité marine, comme je vous le disais, mais c'est aussi 35% des espèces marines en danger d'extinction. Alors on s'est rapproché de l'UNESCO, on a signé un partenariat pendant l'UNOC à Nice avec l'UNESCO. Et puis on a reçu aussi la visite du président Macron sur notre bateau à l'île Maurice, qui a soutenu visited us on board, and he supported this new project, and I'm very proud to be able to say today that we will be launching a new ship,
de 60 mètres à propulsion vélique,
a new sail ship,
qui sera dédié à la restauration
which will be dedicated to restoring and protecting the most important sites of the planet. The idea with this ship is to be able to launch a first prototype, and after that to have a whole fleet on every ocean in charge of studying, doing scientific research and
la restauration, donc concrètement elle retire les plastiques, mais aussi
plastic waste,
les espèces invasives,
but also it might be removing invasive species or restoring the coral reef and the mangroves, and in addition to that have pleas to reduce the quantity of plastic in the sea and the pollution from plastic. So we're very happy to be able to make the announcement of this upcoming project very soon. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to all the panelists who have already addressed us. This is also my quick minute of short reflection of what we've heard here today. And very quick 3 bullet points. First one, picking up on what you've said here. We need strong commitment. It makes sense even in the face of dramatic adversities. And then from our food and from our pollution colleagues, these silos need to be bridged. They need to be connected, and they are part of an approach that really needs to look to all the dots. Second quick bullet point, I think you're all deserving a huge applause later on, not now, to say we have probably broken also the Guinness record for quickest science to action translation. Yesterday in this room, hundreds of scientists came together and we published the recommendations. They are still hot from the press. And we had the Tuesday since the morning until now, including now, of ticking the box, science recommendations turning to action. And last, because the ambassador was kind enough, the minister was kind enough to introduce me as a believer in One Health, I just want to share with you a sentence, not mine, that I profoundly believe embodies the spirit of One Health. And I was privileged to listen to Pope Leo XIV when he addressed the Food and Agriculture Organization at its 80th anniversary. And he said, at an historic moment marked by deep divisions and contradictions, to feel united by the bond of collaboration, it's not just a beautiful ideal, but a decisive call to action. We must not be content with filling walls with large, eye-catching posters. The time has come to make a renewed commitment that will have a positive impact on the lives of those who expect tangible action from us. And with that, I give the floor to an organization that really is the guardian of our planet health. Madam Executive Director, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and what a distinguished panel. And I think that this session has been very, very interesting, but let me start by giving thanks to France, of course to President Macron, but also to the dear colleagues who are part of the quadripartite. I see Tedros here, for really making this work. Because this panel invited us to expand the boundaries of One Health. It invited us to look beyond the sort of normal. It invited us to talk about what the presidents of both Botswana and Ghana spoke about this morning, the health of humans, the health of domesticated animals, the health of wild animals, and the health of our planet as we know it. And the health of our biodiversity, that on which we stand, that which feeds us, that which gives us our water and our lives as we know it. We stand or fall on nature, on planet Earth, and that is what we have to understand. We are sharing this Earth with other species, and when they are in a bad way, so are we. And that's what this panel has essentially told us. Because too often, I'm sorry to say, the One Health focuses on, yes, infectious diseases, which are important, as we heard from Emmanuel, but we also need to make sure that we go beyond, and that's what this panel has done. But we also, I put it to you, need to understand that this cannot be just a human-centric conversation, because we are sharing this planet with another 8 million species. And these species, we are as dependent on them as they are on us. And frankly, if we were to disappear, they would probably be just fine. And so the thing is that we are more dependent on them than they are on us. But the issue that we have to understand that we have been rather careless with the earth. We've degraded it quite a lot, and that is now coming back to us in the form of these invoices that now we are struggling to understand. Invoices that come to us in the form of climate change, of fires, of droughts, of floods, of zoonotic diseases, or of desertification and lands that are no longer fertile, or of our waters being polluted. Now, in 2022, the United Nations General Assembly came together and member states said that there is a universal human right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. That is now a right. And that was then picked up later on by the Assembly, which I am honored to be guided by, the United Nations Environment Assembly, that began to say, okay, so how does this all work in terms of nature-based solutions? And of course, when we gavelled the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which is the Paris Agreement equivalent to the Biodiversity Convention, it was very clear that human health was sewn right in, baked right in to these elements, because you have to understand biodiversity in human health, nature and human health. And I was very happy to see COP26 in 2021, where health really gained a lift, a good lift, and where we saw WHO being present, and where we saw resilient health systems and a greater recognition of the co-benefits of climate action and health benefits. In UNEP, my organization, we speak about a triple planetary crisis. The crisis of climate change, which I think everyone has understood, the crisis of biodiversity loss, land degradation, desertification, water issues. That crisis is the second crisis. And the third crisis deals with the pollution crisis. And we must not, when we speak about One Health, only speak about pollution. If we do so, we are missing the point. Because the desertification, the droughts, the sand and dust storms have impacts on childhood asthma just as much as does pollution, and in places more. So we must understand that yes, climate, yes, all the things that have to do with our terrestrial and maritime ecology, and yes, indeed, pollution. But a few words on pollution, because we need to understand that our own careless interaction with the planet, our emissions from fossil fuels, our chemical pollution, are causing respiratory diseases, are causing cardiovascular conditions, are causing pollutions, are also causing strokes and lung cancers. And we heard some elements from my colleague here. It's important, Lancet in 2022 published and spoke to tackling pollution could help reduce by 9 million premature deaths each year. And of course, we understand that AMR is an important dimension also in the environment. Let's not focus only on over antibiotic use in human and in our domesticated animals. Let's understand how are we running our pharmaceutical factories? What happens to the effluents? What do we do with our agricultural runoff? What happens in our health sectors? How do we deal with bio-waste? And what are we doing with antivirals, antifungals, and antiparasitics that we at times are spraying on our fields? This is all part of the AMR story. So let's broaden out when we speak about non-communicable diseases. Let's make sure that we educate health professionals, because it is not enough anymore just to understand the health side. You've got to understand the nature side too. How do we integrate ecological health into health practice? We know today that there are doctors who are well informed, who understand that diabetes, stress, cardiovascular, sometimes the best medicine to give is RX nature. Take a walk, get moving, and preferably move in nature. It'll bring down your blood pressure. You may be able to manage your diabetes, and you will most certainly lower your stress levels. Of course, food systems, other colleagues have spoken to, so I'm not going to do that, but it is critical that we are well nourished, both to be healthy and to be resilient. But that food system cannot be that which poisons us. So let's ensure that our food system is nature positive. And water, others have spoken to it, and I really salute the UAE for hosting the next water conference. We look forward to that. Let's make sure we speak about water supply and sanitation. But please let us also talk about big water. The big hydrological cycle, because it is fed by nature. Nature sweats it out, it comes down as rain, and if we do not take care of our rainforests and our tropical forests, we will lose this. So of course, and finally, we need to think about nature as medicine. I mentioned the issue of walks in nature. We also need to understand that 80% or so of modern medicine actually comes from nature, from plants and from things that nature can teach us, or inspired by nature, nature mimicking. This is very important, and that's part of why we need to make sure we protect, of course, that nature. But nature does other things too. There is a landmark MRI study on nature and neurodevelopment, which looked at differences in brain volume by residential exposure to greenness. It's from 2018. It looked at children from 7 to 9 years old. It found greater amount of gray matter volume and greater amount of white matter volume in the brain regions linked to better cognitive performance, suggesting that regular exposure to natural environments supports a healthy brain development. This is not for the faint-hearted. And of course, this is not really a surprise. You take a tiger cub and you put them in a concrete zoo cage, or you leave them in the wild and open. Which one do you think develops the best brain? We know this from nature. How do we not understand this for our own kids? So the message has to be very simple. We must acknowledge that a healthier planet means healthier people. And preventing environmental degradation could prevent premature deaths, reduce the global burden of disease, and ease pressure on health system. From UNEP, my organization, I take this opportunity to affirm our commitment to support countries in integrating biodiversity health linkages into the 70 countries that we have the privilege of being supportive of as they prepare their national biodiversity strategies and action plans. That's equivalent to the NDCs for those of you who only speak climate. But these plans are very important. We will work to lift the One Health dimension. I also want to affirm our commitment to strengthen our work on wastewater and environmental surveillance. We do a lot of that surveillance in priority countries in Africa to enhance capacities to detect health and environmental-related risks. Bottom line is the quadripartite, the One Health Joint Action Plan. That's our map. That's what we have to do. And holistic and collaborative solutions, that's the way we will get there. If we only park this with the environment ministers, we will have done them an injustice. And we heard from these two distinguished representatives, ministers, how they speak to the nature dimensions so powerfully. So let us not walk away from here and think that this One Health is a little check for the environment. No, it is the earth on which we stand. It is the food that we eat. It is a nurture for our children. It is the health of our future. And we know that if we not take care of that, then we are not taking care of ourselves, let alone our children or our children's children. Thank you.
Merci à tous. Can you hear me? Oh, here it goes. Please join me in applauding this wonderful panel.